Dynamo Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the podcast that we bring you each and every week from the Dynamo Podcast Network, the new network out there for everyone to subscribe to and now available on YouTube. Go check out some of our latest videos there. And tonight we're going to be focusing on some results from previous in the week. And we're also going to be looking to this week's weekend fixtures and also some really hot news topics that just came out this week. And joining me tonight is Ian, the agent Kelly, and also Peter Hart from Peter Hart Graphics, one of the sponsors of the show, and also who runs the Superior Comic Podcast, also available on the Dynamo Podcast Network. How are we doing, guys?
OG. I feel like I should come in and say Dynamo's Dozen is also there. For Podmen is there, and
it was a prodigal son.
Yeah,
King Woe's Court, ASI
NFL show, baby. For all you American football geeks out there, get your ass onto that show. In my opinion, it's actually one of the best NFL shows out there, certainly on this side of the pond. So, yeah, I'm happy to be back, lads. I've been listening for the last couple of shows. Great work. Been enjoying it.
Draw, and I think that's what you had mentioned. But yeah, it was a very weird weekend for football in terms of fixtures at the top of the table. Southampton obviously big winners as well, and moved into that upper tier kind of bracket. But yeah, I don't know what your thoughts were on the fixtures there last week and the results.
Are we gonna include the fixtures from midweek, or are we just talking weekend?
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, no, touch on all of them. Yeah, touch on all of them.
My opinion with the weekend and the midweek fixtures, the big winners have to be Liverpool out of all of it, to be honest. It's not often. It's how Liverpool picked up the title last season. It happened a lot earlier and a lot more often, but you need to pick up points when the teams around you drop them. And luckily for us,
it's how champions win championships, right?
Yeah. People always say, you can't focus on other teams' fixtures, but sometimes you need to capitalise on other people dropping points, and surprisingly, everyone at the top dropped points.
The scary thing about Liverpool is, if you're any other fan other than Liverpool, is that they're picking up points in a time where they shouldn't be, or where other teams should be capitalising on Liverpool's injuries. That's not happening at the moment. I think, even myself as a Chelsea fan, United, City, Spurs. You kind of have to know your level at the moment, and we have to realize that Liverpool's at that level that everyone has to aspire to, in terms of everybody knows their role in the team. There's a system, and for you to come into that system as a player, whether it be a replacement as a substitute or a replacement for an injury or just a replacement because you're in better form, you have to fit into that system in order for it to be a success, and in order for you to be an individual success as well. And I think that's what separates Liverpool at this moment in time from everyone else, because you can see Spurs, Chelsea, those two in particular, Spurs, Chelsea, are kind of the closest to Liverpool in terms of the new blood. And what I mean by new blood is in like a new team trying to figure out their systems and whatnot. So I think, they're doing a good job. I think both of those teams are actually doing a very, very good job in terms of, new players being bled in and trying to figure out what the system is. And, because as you said, like in a previous podcast there, Peter, Klopp has had like 4.5, it'll be 5 years by the end of the season to really instill that system, from the top to the youth level. And I think Liverpool and Chelsea are the closest in that sense. The biggest surprise for me, for sure, is Man City, because I would have expected Man City at this stage to know how Pep Guardiola plays his football. I think Man United can even get a pass on this one. Let's be fair, United are in better form than some of the teams at the moment, just based on not losing. Considering we've given them a battering on previous podcasts, but they look like they have a little bit of stability back in the camp, just a little bit. But I definitely think, and I don't know whether you guys agree, I think Tottenham and Chelsea, I think those two teams would be probably happy with top four this year. But you would be they would have been expecting to really be chasing, Liverpool obviously won and then City second.
Yeah.
I think City are the big losers at this moment in time. I don't know whether you guys agree with that.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I have to say now, and I know it's Niall has said it a couple of times a while back, and you mentioned it, I think, in the last podcast. United being on this form now, I am slightly worried that they might start climbing back up, simply because they now don't have that extra pressure of Champions League football. Yes. They can do what they want with the Europa League. They've won it enough. I don't winning it would be great to get into the Champions League, but I think they're going to push all out for top four now and rest players for Europa League. So I think they're ones to watch for the next couple of months.
I'd agree.
I spoke to a number of United fans there during the week just to get a reaction off them, and they're, as far as they're concerned, they believe, like, if they win their 2 games in hand, they believe that they're in a title challenge. Now, I don't know whether I'd see it that far, but they do believe they're in a title race. And their comment was, if they get to, say, February, early March, and they're still in a title race, their feeling was they should be binning the Europa League and Ollie should be going for it. Now, whether that's true or not based on the information we heard during the week.
My only rebuttal to that would be...
Yeah, go ahead.
Calm down a little bit, and I say this to all fans, including Chelsea fans, including Liverpool fans as well, everybody. Listen, we've seen with Chelsea what a difference 2 games can make, and we've seen with this year what a difference a year can make, it just in real life. You know what I mean? So... these games, because of the Corona situation and the fact that they're ticking fast at the moment, we're getting into a very, very hectic Christmas period. It sounds like a United comment, and I don't mean this as a knock to United fans again. I know we get some. I get some feedback for like this is an anti-United podcast. It's not. But when a United fan or any football fan in general comes out with a comment like that, and they're already thinking of what they're going to be doing in February, just pipe down a little bit is what I would say to that, because, listen, you don't even know if Solskjaer is going to be there in February. You don't know what players are going to come in January. You don't know how Liverpool might strengthen in January. It's a possibility if some of the, all it takes for Liverpool is one quality, signing somewhere, like an old head that could be brought in for a season and a half. Same with Chelsea, same with City. City could get on a run again. Southampton could stay consistent and be the new Leicester, so it's at this moment of time, 13 games in, I think it's too early to be getting too far ahead of yourselves.
I agree there.
It feels like less than 13 games because of the pandemic, but it is only 13 games, you know. We had some banter during the week there, Niall, about like Timo Werner having a bit of a bad run of things at the moment, you know, as a new Chelsea signing and Havertz. But yet, like, he's got 9 goals, you know, so far this season as a new signing in a new country. So, and we judge other players from our rival teams as well, and sometimes don't take a step back and look at it in context and go, lads, it's still really early in the season right now. Things could change so much, you know. So
I've 2 things to say that what you're saying. Actually, the first thing that came to my mind is, yes, everyone needs to calm down. Us as Liverpool fans need to calm down. There's no point in starting thinking about back-to-back just yet. We need to think about the next game, which is Palace.
13 games, yeah.
Yeah, like you said, technically Southampton are in a title race right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And another thing there, just dropping, I know we're going to get onto the news in a bit, but I just got the notification there. Jurgen Klopp's named the best men's coach for 2020 at the FIFA Awards.
Well, I think that's a given, right?
Yeah. I thought Bielsa was going to win it.
No. I mean, he's a cheater. He spies on training. No, I think Jurgen Klopp, I mean, look, we won't spend too much time, you know, on individual accolades.
Yeah, it was just a passing bit of news.
I think we can all, you know, me included, as a non-Liverpool fan, can take a bit of time and appreciate, you know, the great work that Klopp has done, and he for sure he's definitely should win the men's coach of the year, in my opinion, anyway.
Right, we got derailed there. We were talking about the results, and yeah, no, we were talking about the shocks. I know this was all tied into the results. Well, not going on to, I think everyone knows the results in the weekend by now. But can we talk about something that we touched on the last couple of episodes? Arsenal. I don't know what has happened. I watched a bit of Arsenal fan TV, and it's gotten that bad that they were actually quite happy with that draw last night. They were actually happier than I've seen them in weeks with that draw last night. I think simply because it wasn't a loss.
Yeah, I think their main concern at the moment is it's the fear if Arteta goes, here we go again, and they're starting again. And I think that's a real concern for them, because they're just moving through this cycle constantly of, you know, not happy with players, then not happy with the manager, then not happy with players, then not happy with the manager. And it just keeps on going back and forward. And before you know it, you can end up in that cycle and 20 years can go by and you'll have done nothing in football. And I'm sure that's a real concern for them as well. Plus, I'm sure, you know, football managers and football players, they listen to some of this content. They hear what's being said. And that has to affect their confidence at time as well. And he is a young manager who has been thrown into a lion's den to try and resolve major issues at that club in terms of like what's going on at board level, you know, the situation with Ozil. Aubameyang was signing, then he wasn't signing, then he signed. And they don't have a good track record of when they sign players to big contracts of it turning out really, really good. You know, and then there's ex-Arsenal players at the moment coming out as well saying that there's a number of players on that pitch at the moment shouldn't be even getting through the gate of the Emirates. Now, whether that's... Yeah, I mean, Everett told a real good story the other night about how he went over to Henry's to watch an Arsenal game, and when they seen Xhaka coming out, Henry turned the telly off and said he couldn't watch it.
Said he couldn't watch him be the captain of his club or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's captain of his club. So, like, you know, when you're hearing that from ex-players as well, that just heaps the pressure on, you know what I mean? And they're in a real precarious position. I mean, Southampton really put them to the cosh there the other night. They were under a lot of pressure. Aubameyang took his goal and it was long overdue, in fairness. But there's serious pressure at that club at the moment. And, you know, they rely a lot on the financials as well. You know, like, I don't see them getting relegated, not by any stretch. No. And I know we always have the old story of, well, Leeds were too big to get relegated and they got relegated. But I think Arsenal will come through. They will put a string of results together and they will start playing. But the concern for them, I'd say, is, especially for the fan channels as well of Arsenal, is like, you know, who are they going to get in if Arteta was to go? And here we go again, you know what I mean? And you're still going to have to solve Ozil, Aubameyang, Lacazette, Xhaka, Pepe, Gabriel last night in his game, sent off, red card.
Cracks are shown.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Cracks are shown in the dressing room.
Like I say, again, we're 13 games in. If Ozil comes back into the team and starts performing, that's also like a new signing. You know what I mean? These are options that Arsenal have. These are options that, we look at our teams, and we all do it as football fans, okay? This could be Chelsea fan TV with me talking about how I feel where we're going wrong with certain things and certain players and certain positions. And what if we put Havertz here? Or what if we rested Havertz, put him on the bench for the next 3 games? It's like, football fan reaction is so fickle nowadays that all of a sudden Kai Havertz and Timo Werner are shit footballers. You're like, oh, come on. And I heard Frank Lampard say that, didn't he? He was like, it could take
an emotional
it could
reaction.
take 2 weeks, it could take 6 months, or it could take a year, and you're going to see Kai Havertz at 22 years of age then, if it's a year, as the world beater that basically the world expected him to be. And this could go for any other player. I mean, you guys had it with Liverpool with, Naby Keita, with Fabinho. At first, even fans were saying that
Mane in his first season was good, but he wasn't great.
We've seen it with United. United obviously kicked off with Bruno Fernandes, and he kind of came in straight away and done the business. 20 penalties later, fair enough. And look, I'm sorry, I'm teasing, guys, but no, there's certain players that can come in and fit into a system straight away, and that is the key point. Football is so tactical now that it's system-based, and no matter how talented you are or whatever qualities you have, whatever your manager is asking of you, you have to fit into a system. And football is evolving now, I think, at the fastest rate I think that it's ever done. I'm sure you guys would agree with that in terms of tactics and systems and stuff like that. We talked about Maradona, rest in peace, a few weeks back. There aren't many Maradonas around anymore that can just go and do that. Football tactics have evolved, and these guys are athletes. They can maintain a level of fitness that they can keep up with players that they weren't able to do back in the day, even 5 years ago. So again, I think people need to calm down. Even with their own clubs, they need to calm down. Even the clubs will give some love to the relegation zone clubs at the moment. It's not over yet. This is only 13 games in.
Yeah, things can get turned around. It's football. It's a very emotional. Yeah, it's a very emotional thing following a football club. Like you said, with people bashing on Havertz and Werner, you like to feel like you have one over on your rival club.
Yes.
And also with your own club, you like to feel involved. You like to feel like your comments about this player are going to make them get better. But players are seeing this. Look at the likes of Nico Williams taking down his Twitter and Instagram account after the abuse he got in the Champions League game. And I'm sure these Arsenal players are seeing it as well, because two out of the last 3 red cards were reactive, Pepe and Xhaka, and they were stupid reactions that made it look like players under pressure, and they knew they were under pressure from the fans and lashed out. And the fans that are, chilling out, like you said, get behind the team, support them. They know it's board level. Arsenal can't go out and spend like a City or Liverpool or Chelsea because their board are tight. Let's be honest, they're tight-fisted.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see, because the Arsenal teams of the past, I know you might disagree being another London club supporter, they've played some beautiful football.
No, I wouldn't disagree at all, my friend. I mean, Arsenal was the club that I one day wished Chelsea would aspire to back in 1998-99. 100%. I remember Chelsea being 2-0 up one year. Niall will remember this. It was 98, and Kanu scored a hat-trick. And the third goal for the hat-trick was at the most impossible angle you've ever seen.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and as a Chelsea fan, you could do nothing but actually sit down and applaud. And they were real football fans back then. And that's what I think we're missing now. Football fans...
The internet has ruined it.
Football fans used to applaud, even English fans, and I mean this with all the love in the world. Sometimes English fans get a bad rap because of the whole Maradona hand of God thing. English football fans are the best football fans in the world, in my opinion. They support their clubs, with an undying passion. but especially the English fans of old, they really, really did. You know, they would applaud. I remember like Gianfranco Zola scoring a goal against Schmeichel. Do you remember that little dribble, Niall, that he done in his first season?
Unbelievable.
And he put Schmeichel on his arse, and Alex Ferguson went, Jesus Christ, what was that? You know what I mean? Managers were coming out going, wow, fucking hell. Well, we deserve to be beaten with that goal. Do you know what I mean? Honesty was a part of the game. And, you know, Jose kind of came in and changed that a little bit, let's be real. And brought the art of pro wrestling and pantomime, I suppose, to football. You know, but Sky Sports also had a big part in it too. That they, you know, it was box office. But I suppose, look, as we wind down, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Yeah, I think fans need to pipe down a little bit. It is very early on. Liverpool still look great, like I said. That's just my opinion looking at it. But I also think all fans of all teams need to kind of relax a little bit and realise that usually at this stage we're into Christmas and we're halfway through the league. You know, on a normal season. This isn't a normal season. We're only 13 games in.
Yeah, I think the other thing we haven't mentioned either as well is it's quite a low points total as well so far. Like if you look at Liverpool, it's 28 points from 13 games.
Very much so.
You know, like this isn't going to be one of those 100-point or high 90-point seasons or anything like it, you know what I mean? But to touch on your point there about like fans, you know, needing to chill out and stuff like that, I suppose the concern as if you were an Arsenal fan is that, you know, you're not up there challenging for a top 4 or a top 6. You probably don't see much investment in the next, say, 6 to 12 months probably, unless you bring back in an Ozil, as you mentioned already. And, you know,
I think it would be a great move.
And that's very different to say if you compare that with a Chelsea that has a very strong bench, who's going through a bit of a blip at the moment, but have played fantastic football this season. At times have been amazing. But for Arsenal, they're not playing good football. They barely have a bench. You know, the players are, you know, they're erratic. They're getting booked. They're getting sent off. They're acting stupidly. They've a manager there who's not experienced, who was brought in kind of, I would imagine, was probably a cheap alternative. Wasn't necessarily a legend at Arsenal. So doesn't really carry that sort of Frank Lampard, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer kind of legendary status. He was decent at Arsenal at best. If I was an Arsenal fan, I would be concerned, even though it's only 13 games, because I think they're in a really bad place at the moment. Like they're not going to be challenging for a top 6 anytime soon. And, you know, they're finding themselves behind teams like Southampton and Leeds and teams like that. And it's difficult for them to take. I know as a Liverpool fan, the 90s was terrible for me. Even the early 2000s was terrible for me because we were so used to winning things. We were so used to playing a certain style of football. Yeah. And then we just went through so many years, you know, 20, 30 years of just mediocrity where we were, you know, purchasing average players because that's all we could attract, making silly signings, wasting stupid money. And it took a long, long time for that fixed to the point where we nearly even went out of business. We were right on the brink. And I just think, yeah, I would be concerned if I was an Arsenal fan, even after 13 games, because I don't see anything there that would tell me that. I'm not talking in terms of relegation here now, but in terms of moving up the table or a pattern of play or, you know, even pushing in a Europa League or anything like that. I think they're going to struggle this season. And I'd fear for Arteta.
And I'd just like to say, like, in closing from my, this is the last thing I'm going to say on the matter. You know, something important that I didn't get a chance to say. Rest in peace, Gerard Houllier. Because, Jesus, that's actually, like, that was a staple of my upbringing in football. You know what I mean? The Sami Hyypiä era, should I say. So just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you look back at him when he came in, like he was the one that kind of broke up that kind of old boot room mentality. And, you know, he brought in a lot of the modernizations that you now see in football. You know, in terms of diet, in terms of science, in terms of all that kind of stuff, psychology and all the stuff that
And
you work
also,
on in
and also, Carlsberg.
the game. Probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's responsible for a lot of the scientific stuff now that you see at clubs. I mean, he was a big advocate of all that stuff when he came in first. And that, I think a lot of that is why he clashed a lot of times with Roy Evans, because Roy Evans at the time was obviously from the old school boot room thinking, you know what I mean? And you even hear back stories where, like, you know, Julia, he didn't want the boys going out doing the things that they used to do. Kind of a little bit like when Souness came in first, but obviously Souness wouldn't have the personality to put it across. And obviously the game hadn't modernized to that point anyway. But yeah, rest in peace, Jared Julia. Absolutely legend and icon of the game.
Let's not forget, he gave a young Scouser his first chance, and that Scouser will go on to be known as possibly one of Liverpool's best ever players and one of the best players in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So I suppose that's a good point to close the show out with. Rest in peace, Jared Julia.
Yeah.
And sure, for myself, the coach, Niall Hogan, and for Ian, the agent Kelly, and for Peter, the physio Hart. We'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in.